Do you need help?
They're taking away people's hopes and dreams and their self-fulfillment. I think self-fulfillment matters. I don't care if I'm the...
It's all about selling drugs.
The Everyday PsychVictims Podcast.
If you are a child, you better not smile, 'cause they'll take you to the quack, put you on legal crack. So if you are a child, you better not smile, 'cause they'll take you to the quack, put you on Prozac.
Leon was held at the mental hospital for nearly 2 years. PSSD is a term coined from the sexual interference effects of psychiatric drugs when the sexual interference irreversibly lingers, even though taking the drug has stopped. Some mental patients are forced to keep returning for these injections indefinitely. Under a legal extension of hospital holding orders called Community Treatment Orders, or CTOs. Thank you, Leon, for coming on the Everyday PsychVictims Podcast. How much space to walk around was there on the ward?
Oh dear, my daily constitutional caused me problems. Having a daily constitutional was the problem. Being on the lock ward, not allowed out. There was a lack of exercise, and the gym was always closed. They claimed through to insurance purposes. We weren't insured to use the equipment, even though there was only 3 pieces of equipment: a walker, a cycle machine, and a rowing machine. So how much room was there? Well, there was a long corridor, but the trouble was, if you pace up and down, they take it as a sign of illness, not a sign that you want daily exercise. The trouble is that it's taken as a sign of illness. Or alternatively, as soon as you're out in the ward and you start walking up and down the corridor, they come up to you, expecting you to immediately to accept their request for you to come to a meeting or participate in some activity, surveys or something. They were always, as soon as I went out for my daily constitutional, I was always harassed by psychiatrists or some sort of worker to participate in some activity, whether it was a ward round or a survey. There wasn't that much room. The only time there was room was at the weekends, because it's cleared out then. There wasn't that much room actually to walk around. But then it's a locked ward with a filled capacity of 17 patients and more than 17 staff.
Did the patients leave there cured?
They don't want to cure people. They don't want to cure people. They might have been better in the sense that they went. If they came in fluently psychotic, they might have been better that they went from fluently psychotic, but no one left cured. Everyone left under the guise of psychiatry. They don't want to cure people. They want to keep you under their control and grow the numbers. So there's more need for their services. So, in answer to your question, did anyone leave cured? The answer is no.
Did they ever ask you what might help you?
They asked me a lot how I felt. It was always, how do you feel? How do you feel? It was always, they were very interested in asking me how I felt without really much concern about my feelings. Did they ask me what could help me? I have no recollection of them asking me what would help me. Apart from the occupational therapist did. Yes, the occupational therapist asked. But she was immature, inexperienced, and not properly trained. This was her first job since she graduated as an occupational therapist. And the cooking, well, that was sort of insulting. They felt that they could teach us to cook, and if there's a cookbook and we didn't understand the words, they would be able to explain the words. Most of the cooking lessons were to come out of a cookbook, not from them. And they were on hand to explain the big words that we fail to understand. The occupational therapist was a disappointment, because what is occupational therapy in a mental health setting anyway? She didn't understand that, and she was rather naive in her beliefs. She was the only one who asked, how, what can we do to help? Psychiatrists now, and none of the nurses did.
Am I right in thinking that they kept asking how you're feeling without much thought, without really asking how you're feeling, to record that on your records record that on your mental records?
Well, suspicious thinking's a sign of paranoia. Let me tell you that to begin with. Are you sure you're not suffering from some sort of delusional order with suspicious thinking? And this is England, and everyone's nice to everyone. Particularly nurses and doctors.
That sounds right.
I have no idea. I did read. I went through my for preparation for a tribunal hearing. I went through my notes of my doctor.
Is that like a mock trial?
No, it's not a mock trial. It's a legal remedy. It's the equivalent of a court. It's not mock. It's the real thing. It's the equivalent of a court. It's part of your legal safeguards, or intended to be part of the legal safeguards to stop psychiatry abusing its authority.
Is it effective?
Most people think not, because I read my notes. Well, I read my notes with my solicitor. The solicitor said that he wouldn't normally go through the notes in such detail with patients. He was taking me on as an exceptional case by going through my notes with me, because I had a better insight into the workings of psychiatry than most other patients. So that's why he gave me the special dispensation to go through my notes. But it was unsatisfactory, because I only got one reading with my solicitor, and I had to agree to entries there and there. I wasn't allowed to go away and mull things over. But it's probably just as well I wasn't, because there's a heck of a lot of misinformation, and everything was thrown in a bad light. Actually beggared belief. Well, actually beggared belief that they're providing medical care. They seem determined to paint me in the face of criminal behaviour, rather than beggared belief that they were actually there to care for me. It seemed that the castration was more of a punishment for criminal behaviour than for therapeutic purposes.
What's an average day like on the ward?
Boring. You wake up and there's nothing to do. You just lie in bed, or else you can go to the lounge. But there's no one to have a proper conversation with. Breakfast is supplied, but there's no conversation around the dinner table. I got discouraged by the most senior nurse there. Well, maybe not the most senior nurse, but the alpha nurse, the one who took charge, and the one who's most like nurse. What's the nurse saying out of one food for the cuckoo's nest? Nurse Rancid. I'm calling her Nurse Rancid. It's not Nurse Ratchet, isn't it? It's Nurse Ratchet. The black African female nurse who wanted to be Nurse Rancid. She said she wanted us really to eat. She claimed that people choke on their food, and we're there to eat, so we should eat and not talk. And she stifled all conversation. There's no conversation round the dining table. You thought sociability would overridden her pettiness, but no, her pettiness reigned, and we sat in silence at breakfast, dinner, and lunch. There was very little encouragement to talk, apart from when you went to psychodrama. Psychodrama was the only time that you were encouraged to talk openly. You weren't even, when they had the communal meeting in the lounge about once a week about the running of the ward, you weren't even encouraged to talk openly there. They kept saying, if anyone had a complaint, they kept saying, that's a private matter, we can discuss it privately, which really happened. It really was discussed privately. But it's the sense of isolation. You're very isolated on the ward. The patients are isolated. There's no real conversations, no real activities. The main conversations revolved around the smokers who kept asking for smoking breaks and trying to catch tobacco off other patients because they run out of tobacco. As a non-smoker, there was very little conversation for me to have. It's only now that I'm regaining social skills and regaining the ability to talk and relate to people. And that makes you smaller as a person when you don't speak, and your interests shrivel. So I'm a smaller person for being in the hospital than if I never went in at all.
What effects did the drugs have on the people around you?
There's a lot of resistance to taking the drugs. Most of the patients didn't want to take the drugs. The drugs, are they therapeutic? It's hard to judge. In the eyes of psychiatrists are therapeutic. In the eyes of pharmacists are therapeutic. But in the eyes of the patients, they tend to be considered pernicious. It's difficult to say. There was a high turnover, such a high turnover of people at times. It made people sedated, it made people put on weight. It would affect them sexually, it would affect them physically. It didn't seem to make them happier, that's for sure.
Did you have... Yeah, continue,
People complained of one drug that like set the brain on fire. What the nurses would just say it's the weather conditions, or it could be something you ate. They never attributed it to the drugs. When the patients are attributed their brains seem to be on fire because of this drug.
Did you have a forced drug injection?
Many. All my drug injections are one-way forced because I have no right to say no. And now I worry about supersensitivity. I can't just abruptly stop these injections because supersensitivity psychosis means that I could go psychotic. What's the reason for this chemical imbalance? The course of treatment prescribed. I have supersensitivity. I'm liable to have supersensitivity psychosis or psychosis rebound. It's the other term they use for it. If I abruptly stop using
if you abruptly come off it, if you withdraw off of it cold turkey. I had a cold turkey. It sent me into to hypersensitive, like what illusions, I guess, when I cold turkeyed off of it. But they attribute that to your to what they say is your mental disease, right?
Well, they just say it's your underlying condition coming back.
How was the Yeah. How was the injections enforced?
Well, I'll room for 18 men come into your room with gloves on to pin you down should you object. By sheer numbers, by sheer brute force. You know it's futile to resist anyway, but they weren't taking any chances. I had a room full of men with gloves on. More men outside in the corridor to ensure I comply with my medication regime.
Did they pre-inform you of the risks?
I've not been informed of any risks. Everything's fine and dandy. There's a risk-free medication as far as they're concerned.
Did you see any leaflet?
No information has been supplied whatsoever, either verbally or in writing.
What do you think of this practice?
Well, what do I think of this practice? Well, it's highly informed consent, is it? It's not informed consent.
I wouldn't say so.
It's just it's psychiatry where no one holds them accountable. No one holds them accountable. Psychiatrists can literally get away with murder. They can shorten people's lives by 30 years, and it's just recorded as natural causes by other doctors. It's just part and parcel of the coercive nature of psychiatry.
What happened following the injection?
What happened? Another injection 2 weeks later, and another injection 2 weeks later. I have changed. I can feel the effects of the medication. It has changed my persona. I don't know if it's therapeutic. I doubt it's it doesn't seem very targeted form of medication. I don't know if it's therapeutic. I do know that it's poisonous to the nervous system. I do know that they're intended to be only used for 6 to 18 months, and I do know that my psychiatrist intended me to be on them for the rest of my life, contrary to the 6 to 18 months intended lifespan of the use of this medication. I am aware of what I previously said of supersensitivity psychosis. I'm in a bind. I don't particularly want to take this medication. I like to be weaned off it as quickly as practically possible, but there's no measures to wean people off this medication.
Yeah, if it's expected for life, they make money off of it for life. There's no 6 to 18 months procedure followed or anything like that. If we can talk about PSSD, to be clear.
Can you explain that? Explain the initials.
PSSD, it stands for Post-SSRI sexual dysfunction, pertaining to the antidepressants causing chemical castration and stopping mental patients getting arousals and erections and making their genitals go numb. But this castration effect is also very, very common and likely with the antipsychotic drugs. The same thing happens. Obviously, less people are on antipsychotics compared to the antidepressants, but it happens nonetheless the same, and the pharmacy literature clearly states that it's the most likely thing to happen to somebody that you give these drugs. So are you okay to ask some questions answer some questions about that.
Well, okay, go ahead.
To be clear and to clarify, did following the antipsychotic injection your genitals go numb and it stopped your arousal erections from happening?
Well, I have asked for what I refer to a psychosexual therapist. I asked for that before the injections when I was on tablet medication for sexual dysfunction. So I have made numerous requests to be referred to a psychosexual therapist at the sexual health unit. Those requests were made more than a year ago and no referral was being made. What's happened is my genitals gone numb. Well, the trouble is, see when they go numb, you stop feeling them, so you don't actually notice that they've gone numb.
Yeah.
My sperm count's gone down, that's for sure. But have they gone numb? Well, it's like I don't belong. I don't exist there anymore. So in answer to that, I would have to say yes.
And has it stopped your erections that you had before?
Well, erections were very hard to come by, but that could have been partly due to being looked upon every hour. They were looking upon you for every hour. Well, I did actually start up sexual relationships with a female patient when I was in hospital. And the main thing I worried about was premature ejaculation.
From the medications causing that?
Yes, medications. Yes. From Phobos side, that was a problem.
Yeah, the same happened to me and other people I've interviewed from PSSD on the Everyday PsychVictims Project, as well as being in the literature for PSSD. That is, it interferes.
And do you know the drug they prescribed to stop premature ejaculation, Prozac, which itself causes sexual problems?
Yeah.
Fluoxetine, to give its medical name.
Yeah, initially when I was put on one of them, it delayed my ejaculations, and then it created, I guess, over tolerance over time. Then it created premature ejaculation. But initially, it made it impossible to ejaculate. So there's a lot of thousands of people all over the world that there's a PSSD forum, there's a side effect charity that caters to PSSD, although psychiatry doesn't care.
I'd rather use, to tackle premature ejaculation, the techniques I laid out in The Joy of Sex, the manual from the early 1970s. That's what I'd rather use. I also asked I also asked quite boldly for the services of a commercial sex worker. my doctor said that's something she would not be prescribing.
And has this harm persisted? Sorry, continue.
This harm continues if it persists. It still persists. It still persists. I'm not in a relationship at the moment, so so I'm not affecting anybody else. But it still persists.
Have you received any compensation?
Fat chance.
What happened when you said the PSSD is still there?
Well, I haven't mentioned it to my psychiatrist. I might mention it to her. I'm seeing her tomorrow. I got a meeting with her tomorrow. I may mention it to her tomorrow. She doesn't like talking about these things. She quickly changes topic whenever you put into sex or sexual dysfunction.
Even though she'd done this harm to you, she doesn't want to talk about it, despite her doing that harm to you.
Yes, I mean, I was going to be getting referred to a psychosexual therapist, but that never happened, and that was over a year ago. She promised that she would make the referral, and she never did.
So she caused you that harm, and she doesn't want to talk about it.
Well, that's normal for a psychiatrist. That's not abnormal behaviour for a psychiatrist.
What happens to the patients that don't go to their monthly drug injections?
Well, they're recalled back to hospital and forced to have them.
What do you think of this practice?
In some instances, it's barbaric. It's a medical model that doesn't work. They put people on a community treatment order, and then they will break down the front door of a person's flat, a home, and drag them off to a place to be injected. It's very expensive, and it's ineffective, and you don't have the partnership of the patient. You're meant to be working in harmony with the patient, not enforcing, being the state troopers of the state, dragging people away. Apparently it costs £750 for an injection in the community. Part of this will be for the drugs, but the other part's for the administration, the cost of the time of the nurse and the cost of the administration. Each injection apparently costs £700. It's budgeted at current price is £750, and that's £1,500 a month for 2 injections.
Sounds like a good setup. Sounds like a good deal for the drug companies.
Oh well, the drug companies they're quite clever with their marketing. It's not actually clever marketing. It's actually childish. It's a logic of a child. The tablets are coming to the end of the patent, so they bring out a variation of injections. I mean, it's a fashion now to inject patients more and more than giving them drugs. The drugs are at the end of the patent. Bring it out in a new format and suspension, and make it injectable, and you can charge a fortune for the drug in that format. It's not clever marketing. It's actually so simple that a child can understand the logic. It's a bit like it's a bit like having fruit pastels and then put them into a carton and having them as a fruit drink. A child can understand that logic. That's basically what they're doing. They're taking the fruit pastels and putting them into a fruit drink. So they're taking the pills and making it into suspension that they inject, and they can charge. The price of the pills will drop. I mean, Prozac now, is, according to the BMF, is 6p a tablet. Was it 5p a tablet? And 4p for generic. Was it 5p for generic? So there's a penny difference between the branded fluoxetine and generic fluoxetine. A penny a tablet difference, 30p a month, or for 30 tablets. the price of generic drugs are so cheap that the drug companies have moved over. Psychiatrists, they're not very sophisticated psychiatrists. They like to they can use sophisticated language, but the behaviour is not very sophisticated.
Okay.
They're just following the herd, but that's all they have to do. All a doctor has to do to avoid being sued is do what other doctors would do. It's the doctors who strike out and try something different, who risk being sued. So it's a psychiatrist who's in the critical psychiatry network who try to do something different at the risk of being sued. Not your average psychiatrist, your stereotypical psychiatrist who just follows the fashion. They're the ones who are not going to get sued because the law will protect them.
Is there anything that you would like people to know?
Well, there's lots that I'd like people to know. Well, I'm writing a book, so I'll say it in the book. There's a lot in psychiatry that I'd like people to know. So I'll try and sum it up for my book. But Lang's basic principle, that's RD Lang, that one should try and avoid psychiatry, which is easier said than done. But my basic message would be the same as Lang, try and avoid psychiatry.
Thank you, Leon, for speaking on the Everyday Psych Victims Project.
It's been my pleasure.